This is Adolf Hitler, easily one of the most recognisable faces of evil of all time, and there are good reasons for this. After dragging the world into a Second World War that claimed the lives of 46 million people on both sides, including 6 million Jews who were mercilessly put to death in concentration camps, it is difficult to think of anyone who has had a more devastating impact on humanity. But the question is, was he a Christian? Because as strange as the question seems to most of us, there are some who claim that he was a Christian in a vague attempt to establish a link between God and evil. Now, how could there be any confusion about this? Well, let's take a look at what Hitler actually believed. Here are some direct quotes from Adolf Hitler. There is something very unhealthy about Christianity. The reason why the ancient world was so pure, light and serene was that it knew nothing of the two great scourges, the pox and Christianity. Our epoch will certainly see the end of the disease of Christianity. It will last another 100 years, 200 years perhaps. My regret will be that I couldn't, like whoever the prophet was, behold the promised land from afar. Christianity is the worst of the regressions that mankind could ever have undergone. The heaviest blow that ever struck humanity was the coming of Christianity. Bolshevism is Christianity's illegitimate child. Both are inventions of the Jew. But Christianity is the invention of sick brains. One could imagine nothing more senseless. The only way to get rid of Christianity is to let it die little by little. Christianity is the liar. We'll see to it that the churches cannot spread abroad teachings in conflict with the interests of the state. This is just a small selection of his quotes against Christianity, so clearly he was not one himself. He thought it was a disease, the work of sick minds, inventions, lies. He saw it as incompatible with his state, and he hoped for the day that it would one day completely disappear from the earth. So how could anyone suggest that he was a Christian? Well, in 1930s Germany, the majority of the people were either Christian or Catholic, and the church was a powerful institution with a significant amount of influence. Hitler feared its influence and recognised that it would be foolish to take them on while fighting a world war. And so, quote, in the pursuit and maintenance of power, he was prepared to delay clashes with the churches out of political considerations. In other words, he made a tactical choice not to take on the churches until after the war was over. As Alan Bullock writes, once the war was over, Hitler promised himself he would root out and destroy the influence of the Christian churches, but until then, he would be circumspect. Hitler's strategy was to appear sympathetic to Christianity in public, tailoring his speeches to whatever he thought his audience wanted to hear, and he ordered his staff to play along too. His propaganda chief and closest confidant, Joseph Goebbels, wrote, "He hates Christianity because it has crippled all that is noble in humanity. But although he is a fierce opponent of Christianity, he forbids me to leave the church for tactical reasons." On December the 29th, 1939, Goebbels wrote in his diary, "The Führer is completely anti-Christian. He views Christianity as a symptom of decay. Rightly so, it is a branch of the Jewish race. In the end, both will be destroyed." But although the Führer will have to get around to a conflict between church and state in the future, he says in the meantime, the best way to deal with the churches is to claim to be a positive Christian. His chief architect, Albert Speer, quoted Hitler as saying, "Once I have settled my other problem, that is, the war, I'll have my reckoning with the church. I'll have it reeling on the ropes." Speer says that Hitler would go off on rants of fury against Christianity, which raised him to a white heat. But in the meantime, he tried to keep his intentions under wraps. And so now we can see where the confusion comes from. Hitler hated Christianity and wanted to rout it out and destroy it once the war was over, but in the meantime, he was using deceit and manipulation and propaganda to hide his true intentions. Not known for his self-restraint, he actually found it very difficult to keep the facade going, and the mask didn't stay on for long. He quickly became prone to outbursts of hostility towards the church. As the persecution ramped up over the years, he ordered the removal of crosses from public buildings and schools to be replaced with portraits of himself. He had church leaders monitored closely by the secret services. He began to undermine them as being treasonous or contemptible, and he even began ordering for Christians to be sent to the concentration camps. At the infamous Dachau camp in Bavaria, for example, the regime established a dedicated clergy barracks for church dissidents. Hitler had said in July 1941, "National Socialism and religion cannot exist together. The heaviest blow that ever struck humanity was the coming of Christianity." He wanted Christians wiped out, and so as historian Michael Fair notes, his aim was the total elimination of Catholicism and the Christian religion. So if he wasn't a Christian and he planned to destroy Christianity once the war was over, what did he believe? Adolf Hitler was essentially a son of the Enlightenment. He was a rationalist, a materialist. He believed that science would hold all the answers. He said, "The dogma of Christianity gets worn away before the advances of science. Religion will have to make more and more concessions. Gradually the myths crumble. All that's left is to prove that in nature there is no frontier between the organic and the inorganic. When understanding of the universe has become widespread, when the majority of men know that the stars are not sources of light but worlds, perhaps inhabited worlds like ours, then the Christian doctrine will be convicted of absurdity." Hitler was ambiguous, but his beliefs were mostly deism with a leaning towards atheism. He didn't believe in any kind of afterlife, for example. Now, some have claimed that he was into occult spirituality and astrology, but although many high-ranking Nazis were, Adolf Hitler himself was not. He said, "What nonsense! Here we have at last reached an age that has left all mysticism behind it, and now Himmler wants to start that all over again. And we will not allow mystically minded occult folk with a passion for exploring the secrets of the world beyond to steal into our movement. Such folk are not National Socialists, but something else. In any case, something which has nothing to do with us." So Adolf Hitler was just a materialist who hated all spirituality, but especially Christianity. And not content with the deaths of 46 million people under his reign, if Hitler had won the war, there is absolutely no doubt that the next phase of his plan was to round up and exterminate all Christians from his empire, just as he had tried with the Jews. We can only imagine and shudder as to what that would have looked like. As for the propaganda, yes, Hitler was really good at it, but while it may have been confusing to the people in the 1930s and 40s, there's really no reason why anyone should still be confused about this issue today. Hitler was categorically not a Christian. Samuel Coney writes, "Emphatically not. It is nonsense to state that Hitler or any of the Nazis adhere to Christianity. Indeed, Adolf Hitler hated Christianity, and the truth about this has been widely available for a long time now. It's only willful ignorance that would now cause anyone to keep clutching at the propaganda. He was most likely a deist and possibly even an atheist."